Carson, great to see you again. Brandon's sick. So we got the three of us together last week. That happens every, I don't know, 6 weeks or so, it seems like. But
once in a blue moon. When the planets align, we all show up.
That's right. But yet again, we have another great guest, James Buckley. As we were talking before, James is a little bit of a shy, introverted guy.
Yeah.
So
we're gonna have to really
we're gonna have to just pull.
material.
Yeah, we're gonna have to pull stuff out of you, James. But we're
Sorry
gonna
about that, guys.
Yeah. So, hey, before we start, as usual, want to thank Fist Bump, the sponsor of the show, and they take care of all the production work, and that's all right. Yeah. So here's to Brandon and the Fist Bump team. So again, they do a great job of all the production and putting all this together and finding these amazing guests for us that are on this on the show. So hey, we've talked a lot on this show, James, about the value of live shows, podcasts as a key strategy of mastering modern selling. Yeah. I think you have taken it to another level, and we're very interested to dig into that. But before we do, I guess start off by telling everybody, if they don't know who you are already, who you are, your background, and I'd love to hear how you think modern selling has changed. What does it mean to do modern selling, especially over the last couple of years, post-COVID, all that stuff?
Yeah. All right. So let's come back in time with me. I'm so shy. Here we go.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm James Say What Sales Buckley, and I say inappropriate things for a living. That's what I tell people. But really, I host a show called Sell Better. We are a live daily sales show. Check us out, sellbetter.xyz. The reason that we did the show was in 2019, late 2019, I was hired on by John Barrows to become a sales trainer. All I ever wanted in the world was to help salespeople sell better. Ironically, it ended up this way anyway. In March of 2020, so just 3 short months later, COVID shut all of us down. And we all did what everybody did. We pivoted to a virtual content strategy that would drive engagement, because engagement was where the connective tissue was happening with anything that we might sell. What's up, Marie? Good to see you. Okay, so we went live probably once a month. And at this time, Morgan J. Ingram and John Barrows of J. Barrows Sales Training were already doing like monthly webinars that were just crushing it, right? Rock stars. I mean, they brought me on, and I was going to like get on airplanes and go train teams and all these things. And they were like, well, let's just share this responsibility of doing the webinars. So we were doing bi-weekly webinars twice a month and seeing massive numbers. We already had a huge following between all of us. There were like close to 500,000, 600,000 followers just between the three of us, right? Wow. So there was this massive amount of people that were coming to the show, the webinar, right? And then this idea hit us. What if we just did this all the time? And because we can't get on airplanes and we can't go train these teams because everybody's scared of COVID. We don't know what's going to happen from this. So we were like, let's do 1 a week. And then it was like, let's do 2 a week. And then before we knew it, I think I was the first one to say we should be doing this every day. And everybody was like, nah, that's crazy. And then our CEO, now our CEO, Christopher Merrill, says, we're going to go every day. We're going to do the live Sell Better daily sales show. And even John at that time was like, no freaking way, man. This is never going to happen. You can't sustain this. And we were fine. We accept your challenge. And 3 years later, we are the longest running daily sales show that exists. And it's a free show. You can come to any episode that's relevant to the topic that you want to get better at, and come to the ones that are going to help you be better in the future, or help you with the job that you want instead of the job you had. Like, that's the whole message, is come every day or watch the recording every day and get 1% better. And we will never be short of sales experts doing things in the field to share what's working for them. And that's the whole purpose of sellbetter.xyz. That's why we do it.
That's pretty incredible. I'd love to get a case study of the people that have been with you through the whole journey and how they've gotten 1% better every day. Tom, do you think you could just go every day all out like this?
I was thinking about that when he was talking about it. And it's like, I think, and James, you were talking about this a little bit, having the right support team and everything like that. I think if you have the right support team, the answer would be yes.
Yeah.
Because and tell me if I've got this right, James. We all put meetings on our calendars. We block out times on our calendar or whatever, an hour a day, or you do 30 or 45 minutes. I think if you were prepped and it was just on the calendar in some sort of predictable way, it would start to become I'm going to use the word habit, but it's going to be something that you're just used to doing day in and day out. And it doesn't feel like such a burden.
You're right about that in a sense. So I'll put it in a couple different ways here. Yes, muscle memory kicks in after you've done it for 6 months. But I couldn't do this without Vicky, without Maria, without Kevin, without Chris, without all the Suze Brosnan, right? All the people, the 7 of us, 8 of us, Will Aiken, Jed Marley, we are all part of Sell Better. It's not me that's live every day. It couldn't be. I can't be the James show. I'm not for everybody, right? We have other hosts with other vibes, other personalities that step in for me and do that, right? The same, or for the show, right? Like just for them. When it comes to the flow, I think when we were going bi-weekly, when we were going every week, once a week, we were slowly starting to develop a process. But when we poured the gasoline on it and said, let's do this every day and let's monetize through sponsorship and great partnerships of tech and solutions and services that sell to salespeople, like that was the eye opener for us. No, like these people shouldn't have to pay $80 or $100 to come to this session. It should be free for them because they're in the trenches every day on the front lines. And you know what? It turned out their leaders came to the show too. Just today, I think we had 130 plus people in the room, over 700 people registered for today's show. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I had 20% senior leadership in the room with me. So out of those 130 people, 20, 30 people might have been, senior leadership, VPs and above. We had a lot of managers and directors as well. So when you look at it from a holistic perspective, a vehicle for value is a magnet. It's an attractant unto itself for people that need the value. Yes, Kevin, thank you very much. Once a week was quite the adjustment, but it opened the door for us to do 2 a week, which then, of course, became second nature for us to just do it every day. And now we've walked away completely from what we used to be tied to, and we just do this thing every day, like the 7 of us every day, constantly going live, driving awareness and engagement, tactical takeaways. And in the end, we end up being those people that people look to. What should I use? How should I do this? What should I say? And that's where every seller needs to be, a valuable resource. Before you can sell anything, they have to view you as a valuable resource.
Yeah. And as Bob pointed out here, right, there is no shortage of things to talk about. So with everything changing, I'm sure having the right content is not there, or is not a problem.
Yeah.
What's interesting is, I don't know if you're familiar, James, there's some venture capital groups now that are going out and funding companies to build an audience first, like what you're doing, and build a product second, right? Mm-hmm. Traditionally, it's build the product, go get the audience. But what people are realizing is it's a lot easier, especially nowadays, to build product than it is to build audience, especially a loyal audience. And you're doing sponsorships, but you could probably launch your own products, your own things into that same audience and immediately have a very viable business.
We probably could, but I think it would be off brand, right? And that comes back.
Be off brand, yeah. But the fact that you built the audience, you've built the audience for that. Right?
It comes back to why you built the audience. If I built the audience with the intent to sell to it directly, that is one avenue to take. And we have lots of things that it works out that way for. Lots of folks come and sign up and do things with us, and they buy from us all the time, but it's very passive. If I build the audience with the intention of providing value to them and never asking them for anything, they will come to me and ask for me to do things for them. And that is organic revenue that's more inbound. I have stopped, quote unquote, chasing deals. And now I can identify them much quicker based on what people are asking me for. And isn't that a stronger position for any frontline seller to be in? I'm not saying outbound isn't the game. I still cold call. I still make lists. I still send cold email campaigns because I'm a practitioner, and I'm also teaching people how to do it on the show every day. So I have to eat my own dog food. I have to show people examples. Hey, look what I sent last week. Check this CTA out, right? If I'm not that person, I just lost all the credibility that I've worked so hard to build. So there's that part of it. But in the end, I feel like this is a practitioner's webinar, a practitioner's show. If you're in the trenches every day doing this job, no matter what, you're going to take something away every day from this expert that we've brought in, and it's a new one every day, and you're going to be able to use it to your advantage to find success. And that, my friends, is why they keep coming back.
And that's the power, James, because like, for instance, you're actually out there doing the things that you're able to talk about. I think you said a couple of things that I really want to double back on. Number one, when you're building a sales culture, it's critical that you have the leadership buy-in, because if I'm a seller, if I'm an individual contributor and I go out and I get some great practice, that's great. I can take that back and I can work on mastering my own craft, but you're not going to intrinsically build it into culture unless the sales leader is embracing this and finding different ways to roll it out within their organization. Second, you being a practitioner is beautiful because you're actually out there doing, I still carry a quota. I'm still out there prospecting. I'm still out there doing a lot of these things. So I can turn back and I can share in real time. This is what's transpiring. The biggest challenge that I would imagine you would have with this show, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, is staying at the pulse of the community and continue to add value every single day, especially amidst all the changes with technology, with AI, how people are leveraging it today. How do you do that? How do you stay at the pulse of your community?
Yeah.
This is such a good question, and I'm gonna tell you something that might sound like the opposite of what you think. I don't have to stay on top of it because the guests that we bring to the show, they're on top of it. All I have to do as a host is ask the right questions. I have to pull, like you're doing with me, right? You're asking all the right things, pulling all this conversation out of me. Both of you are gifted hosts for that reason. I think we have a misnomer in the space, and that is that sales is sales and marketing is marketing, and those two things are very different. It's not true. In fact, you're probably being compensated for the same things. New strangers that didn't know we existed before, and now they do, and now we have to find some sort of connective tissue so that we can have a legitimately relevant conversation between this person that provides and this person that's either exploring, researching, or they're literally shopping for what I do. And that's why we got connected. But that right there is where the value of the host lies. So how do I stay on top of it? Well, there's a plethora of tools out there, no shortage of tools to use. If I want to know what the hottest outbound strategies are in 2025, I simply have but to ask ChatGPT to tell me. And it's probably going to give me the top 10 skills that salespeople have in 2025. And then I can go and explore those in a deeper level and create an entire show out of it for 45 minutes. And everybody that's interested in that skill is going to come to the show. If I then get this, and here's the magic, if I then have a sponsor that is directly adjacent to that skill and that value, that's the sponsor that's going to get the most out of the show and pay us to be a part of it. And isn't that passively offering amazing value to my audience? It's no different than when you watch the Super Bowl and the Pepsi commercial comes on. A team of teams, Marie, where you've been my whole life, you said it, right? A team of teams. That's what's happening when you have a great show, a great loyal audience that understands your value, and sponsors that know how to go to market contextually. That's the magic trifecta.
Wow.
So, the way you run the show now, we were chatting beforehand, you use Zoom. You don't use LinkedIn Live like we're doing here or whatever. You're using Zoom. So people are pre-registering. So you're getting the names and so forth prior to the thing, which I'm sure the sponsors like and want to get as well as you do, right? Now you have actual, and that's one of the challenges we run into is on any given day, if it wasn't for all the great people commenting, we wouldn't even know sometimes if anybody was there with some of the analytics that we get or don't get.
Yeah.
But then do you take it and take the audio and turn that into a podcast that you can listen to every day? Is that kind of, what's the
We sure
repurposing
do.
strategy?
We sure do. Thank you so much, Tom, for calling attention to the multiple channels, right? Listen to me. Every top seller is, I love you too. Every top seller is also a mini marketer. We know how to brand ourselves. We know how to create. We know how to use hashtags effectively, even though that's, old school stuff. They still work. SEO is still a thing. We know how to use paid ads to boost our reach. $8 will get me 2,000 views. Who do they work for? Can I cross-reference them with LinkedIn? This is modern selling 101. How do I create buzz? And if I can create enough buzz, how do I sift through all the bees that are buzzing and find the ones that are most likely to buy from me? That is a stronger strategy than sitting around twiddling your thumbs, waiting for that lead list to come from marketing that has email addresses on it that are like screwoff@nevertalktome.com. You're never going to get a response from that email, but you might get a response in a DM on Instagram from that dude that was like, this is a great sales tip, James. I need to get better at this.
Carson, I know you have a question there. I can see your mind going.
I love the way that this is framing up. And I think, James, for those who are watching that would be, they're like, hey, I know I need to go down this path. Or, the way James just so brilliantly articulated some of these ways of leveraging SEO and hashtags. Like, some of this stuff can be very daunting for the folks that aren't doing it every day. I mean, like, for instance, I'll use ChatGPT and it's all in the prompts, asking it to give me an SEO friendly, attention grabbing subject line, or asking it to give me the 9 best hashtags in one row that will give it the most possible impressions. Like, I'm tinkering all the time with different configurations, but I'm just tinkering. Like, I don't have anybody that's trained me on this stuff. How have you learned? Are there any great resources? And then if somebody's sitting out there like, man, where do I even begin doing some of this stuff? What are your thoughts?
So I do have quite a few resources. I would recommend that everybody go follow Jed Marley on my team, because Jed is the king of practical application when it comes to solutions like ChatGPT, any solution, sales enablement solution, or a point solution that has an AI component. Jed, this young man is amazing. He does incredible stuff on screen, so you can see the actual practical application of these things. I'd also say that you should check out Will Aitken. Will Aitken creates incredible videos, kind of in your face stuff that feels simple, stupid. When you read it, you're like, oh. When you see the video, you're like, oh, like, of course we all do this. This is terrible. Why do I do this? But you see yourself in those things. And he's extremely funny. So you'll get a lot of entertainment out of that. And then Leslie Douglas will gamify any situation. And if you can turn what you're learning into a game, these types of strategies not only help your learning become more fun, but they change your behavior. And once the behavior changes, the results change. And what are we all after? We're after different results. If you do something different and you get a lower result, well, didn't you learn something? That didn't work. Fantastic. But if you do something different and your results exponentially increase, well, I call that growth.
Yeah, there's, I used to call, I think a lot of sellers have what I like to call comfortable ways of mediocrity or comfortable ways of failing. And what's critical is that, especially, I would ask, like, when I would get up in front of sellers every day at morning stand-ups in the call center, and I'd say, look, who out there is 100% satisfied with your results right now? And inevitably you'd get some heckler that's like, oh, I am. It's like, yeah, you know what? You're top of the sales report right now, so this isn't for you. But for the rest of you guys, like, here's the thing. If you're not 100% satisfied with your results, or if your number next to your name is not indicative of your skill or your effort, then you can change something. You can tweak your process. And the other thing too is a lot of people will try something a few times that sounds fundamentally better, but because it's an uncomfortable muscle, they'll try it a few times, they fall on their face, and then they go back to their comfortable way of mediocrity. Bottom line is that if it's all about people and process. And what I love, James, is you built a community. You built a community around people that are out there in the field, experiencing, doing the thing every day, sharing, keeps you at the pulse of what's going on, and you're adding unique value to that community. But on the flip side, you're also like litmus testing these incredible, I mean, it's like a huge human laboratory of sales tactics, and you're able to test it in real time. Like, what I love about sales, I mean, I've been doing this a long time. It keeps you on your toes. It's constantly changing. There's new tools, and the best are going to gravitate toward these tools, and they're going to figure it out. I have fallen flat on my face. I've leveraged LinkedIn in ways that I probably shouldn't have sometimes. I've leveraged AI in ways that I shouldn't have, but I've learned from that. And you just keep tweaking and molding, kind of like you're making, a Michelangelo sculpture. You'll get there.
I've got a few moments of pride that typically would be very frustrating moments for sellers. When your LinkedIn profile gets suspended, you look at that and you get mad, frustrated, you get angry at it, right? But like, if it got suspended for the right reason, man, you were hitting it hard. Like, dude, you shut it down for a second. Like, wow, right? I was once served with a cease and desist. And like I was a little bit angry that I got served because, we had a good conversation and, I was like 86 emails deep, whatever. Right. But like when I got that, even the people in the room with me, because we're all in like a big call tank, and like I got applause. Everybody was like, "Oh, that's a moment of press, a first for me." And when you see that kind of stuff, like part of you wants to be upset that you were served with a cease and desist or that your account was suspended. The other part of you, though, later is like, man, I was really hitting it hard, and they questioned whether or not I was using AI because I sent so many DMs that day. Whether or not you copied and pasted is an ethical question, but let's talk about that later.
And I think a lot of us have been there at some point, right? I mean, ideally you've tried and you've kind of broken the mold. I wrote an article about that recently where, there's a lot of folks that lean into the comfortable and they're not willing to do some of the outside the box stuff. And don't get me wrong, sometimes you'll do it and it might get a negative response from 1 out of 100 people or something along those lines. It doesn't mean you completely shut it down. It means you revisit it and you might do it a little bit differently. If I said no, or if I, backed down every single time somebody told me, hey, don't reach out to our C-suite, or, hey, don't, we're not doing this project or whatever it is. Like if I just stood down, I'd have a lot less deals and success in my history. And so you have to find these ways of differentiating. I work in cloud and technology. People can buy cloud and technology anywhere. The differentiator is the unique value that my team can bring, the community that we build, the passive education that we provide. And these are things that literally anybody can do. So I challenge everybody to kind of look at how do you break outside the mold and create something new to really add unique value for your customers.
So I'll give you a strategy that I've used for many, many years. Make a list of everyone that says no to you. And I know that sounds crazy. Everybody has a list of people that said yes. They usually follow them on LinkedIn just in case they move jobs, right? If you make a list of everybody that says no to you, not only will that list be massive compared to the list of people that said yes to you, but if you occasionally go back and see if those people still work at that company months later, chances are good they don't. Might as well prospect that company all over again, because they probably have someone new that took that place of that person looking to make an impact in their new role. And that's where you can come in. So there's this misnomer that no and never talk to me again mean the same thing, and they don't.
That's powerful, man.
Yeah, no, that's really important, right? Because what you're talking about is, you said, where some person told you no. It's not necessarily the company that told you no.
Well, and we already know that
representing the company at that point. Right.
And we already know, Tom, that every deal has multiple stakeholders. I don't care how small your company is.
That's right.
Maybe there's one decision maker if there's 10 people and you're selling to SMB. Okay, fine. But in the end, if you're looking at any company over 20 people, chances are good there's at least 2 decision makers there.
Yep. And as you said, even if the 2 decision makers said no, chances are one of them are going to be gone. Both of them are gone. They have a new job, new role, whatever, right? Probably every 9 months, 6 to 9
months. They're going to hire a director to take over that thing. And that director is the person that you can go to.
So, hey, I want to go back a little bit. And I know this is an area that people really get interested in. There's 2 areas I want to make sure we can hit on here. I want to go back to the omnipresence or the omni-channel aspect. So everything, and correct me if I'm wrong, James, but everything starts with the daily show, right? And you said you do 30 minutes on Fridays and Mondays, 45 minutes on Tuesday to Thursday.
That's right.
Then you take that recording or the video or the replay. I assume you might cut that into shorts or into small.
So no, it's all hosted on our website in total. So you can go to sellbetter.xyz. You'll see the daily sales show on the left up top. When you click that, you'll see upcoming shows. And then right next to that, you'll see on demand. You can even go in there and search for a specific skill, and it'll show you all the shows based on that skill so that you can build an entire curriculum with what's in there. We've got 3 years.
You need a chat bot that can go back and search every episode.
Right.
That'd be powerful.
I think he has
somebody reach out and sell me a chat bot.
There you go.
Well, I think he has enough content that he could start selling this to OpenAI. It's like, selling the.
Brilliant.
But you have all the replays there as well. is that where you drive people then to watch the replay, or do you
So
again, I
we
know you talked
drive
about
people to specific value that we know is needed. Great example. If we're on the show, we almost always have a gift for the audience in the show. On the podcast, it's in the show notes. And
okay.
that's a simple thing that we can add to anything that we do and say, hey guys, if you want this, I'm dropping it in the chat for you right now, or find it in the show notes here, and you can have that resource for free. These are guides, top templates, top ways to overcome common objections. We put this type of stuff together all the time. So where do we send people? We send them to the things they ask us for. Because there's no need in sending a cold call script to somebody that's been a cold caller for 5 years. They're a gifted cold caller at this point. So I'm looking for those people that come to me after a show and say, great show. You mentioned LinkedIn Sales Navigator, and I'm new to the platform. What do you have for me? And that's when I get to send them a video of how to find all the wonderful LinkedIn Sales Navigator stuff we've done over the years, and they can go and learn from the experts that have walked them through step by step. And they come back to me and go, dude, this changed my life. And that's my why. It's better than any check I've ever been cut is a message that says, James, that thing that you told me changed my life.
It's clear talking to you, James, and just seeing you in action that this fuels you, like helping somebody put more food on the table or to do better at their craft as a result of the materials and the resource that you're putting out there, or the guests that you're bringing into the fray. Like, well done, man. Thank you.
Thanks. I would love to take all the credit. Unfortunately, I'd be wrong to do that. Chris Merrill has driven this thing home since we began. Vicky and Maria are the best event people of Creation Agency, are the best event people I've ever worked with in my entire life. Kevin Johnson manages all of our events, and the other hosts. I can't say enough about the other hosts, Jason Bay, Leslie Douglas, Jed Marley, and Will Aitken. We all come together to
Dream
provide
team
for a community. And it's like the Voltron, dude. Like I'm probably dating
reference. Thank you for that.
You're very welcome.
Admission today. Voltron.
Shout out to my mid-40s out there.
You know what's great? One of the best things about being in a certain age is like when you have kids and you can like get them to play with your old He-Man toys and like show them the cartoons that are now on YouTube that you used to watch as a kid.
I'm too nerdy for that. I would hand it to them and then be like, "Don't get any grease on it. It's a collector's item." Like
I know, literally some of these toys that have lasted 40 plus years only to have my kids break them, but
in 10 seconds.
No, I think your point, James, about offering a gift. I like the concept of a gift, right?
Yeah.
I think that also gets people clearly, and I'm sure your sponsors like this, right? It further qualifies their interest, what they care about. You have different gifts. Obviously, 5 days a week, there's a lot of different gifts you could be presenting over that time frame.
Countless.
Again, stepping back. A lot of people are like, man, 5 days a week, you got a team, you've been doing this. How would you recommend if somebody, has not done any live shows or live events or similar things, how to get started? And I know one of the common objections we hear a lot as well, I don't like being on video, or I don't know what to say, or I'm not going to add any. I mean, we hear this even from CEOs that say,
oh, yeah.
Oh, I don't have anything to talk about. How do you recommend getting started and kind of breaking through that?
Okay, so I have a couple of strategies here. First of all, if you are looking to begin your piece of content, your podcast, your webinar series, your show, however you'd like to label it, go guest on shows first. This is going to make you exponentially more comfortable with the platforms you might encounter. It's going to get you familiar with the banter, the back and forth, the planning on the other side. I have been a guest on probably thousands of shows at this point. And all that experience at the time, you don't recognize it. But then when you start hosting, you remember all those experiences. They come flooding back to you, and you go back and you watch that old content and you go, oh, I liked how that person asked me that. Look how I responded to that. And you catch things about yourself. I also started 2 documents. The first one is a narrative document. This is like what's the narrative that I'm trying to tell? That was like the number one question Chris Merrill asked me when I started hosting. James, what is the narrative here? And that got me thinking about common narratives. There's the hero's journey, which is probably the most popular narrative. I was here, something crazy happened, I had some supernatural force change me, and I came out smelling like a rose on the other side, right? There's the linear narrative. Do these things in this order to get this result. And then there's what I call the pulp fiction. Right? This is where you tell somebody, I scheduled 72 meetings last week. Okay, now let me tell you how I did it. And we run it backwards from there. It's the result first. This happens in movies where you see like a dead body and then it goes 6 weeks later, right? And you find out the whole thing in 2 hours. Anyway, that's some of the narratives that we see very constantly on webinars and shows and everything else. The second document to make a hosting document. Just think about all the shows you've ever watched, talk shows, newscasts, Comedy Central, late night shows, Johnny Carson, Daniel Tosh, Oprah Winfrey, Ricky Lake, Jenny Jones, right? I could go on and on. What did you like about these hosts? What did you not like? Find the things that fit you. And then finally, use a mirror. Before you begin creating, say the things you're going to say in the mirror, full body. Mark your tone, mark your body language. Does this feel like you? Do you talk like this? I had a friend that had a very deep voice. This guy had a voice most guys would kill for. But when he got on the phone, he turned into a little mouse. And no one knew why. I remember pulling him aside and being like, dude, I've known you for 9 years and you've always had this voice. But when you get on the phone, you turn into Minnie Mouse. Why? He never could explain it, but it was because being on screen, being on the phone, and you're right, Tom, the two most common reasons why people don't do this. I don't like the way I look on screen, and I don't like the sound of my voice. It's also the reason people don't listen back to their sales calls, by the way. They don't like the sound of their own voice, right? If you can get over this hump by constantly driving, I swear this level of creation will pull more in your direction than you've ever had chasing it down. And that is where the sweet spot is. That's where you find comfort in the role instead of discomfort.
Well, and let's face it, right? A lot of people are discomfortable or not comfortable with outbound cold calls, right? All of this.
Yeah.
I think that this would certainly be potentially a more comfortable way, but a more fruitful way of investing, or at least balancing with what you're trying to do when you're doing outbound.
I think a special salesperson is able to do cold outbound successfully right now. A very special salesperson can do this. Most salespeople are quite gifted with connective tissue, warm outreach, familiarity. This lessens the stress for them as a seller. It doesn't excite them like it does a good cold outreach person. Cold outreach people, man, I get excited about talking to strangers. And if you think about that, it's against everything we've ever been taught. Go back in your mind. Everyone that's in the room, go back in your mind and think about your parents. What did they say? Don't talk to strangers. And whatever you do, don't get in the car. Those are the two things we're told our entire lives. And then when you're 17 years old or 16 years old, in some states you're 15, and you have your parents' signature, you get your first job. And I don't care if you're standing behind a counter, taking somebody's order, or if you're bagging their groceries at 15 years old, you are talking to strangers. That's your first job. Sorry, you got to do it. When you join a sales role, now we add the element of not only talking to strangers, but getting in the van for the candy and the puppies. That is a scary thought for anybody because we are wired as children to not do this.
This may be the most entertaining episode ever. James, how do we get people to embrace the discomfort more? I think for me, it comes down when I'm meeting with my team, or even just for me personally, it came to, you've got a decision to make. You've either got to accept mediocrity or lackluster results, or not getting that promotion, or not maximizing your paycheck, or you've got to just make the decision that I'm going to do whatever it takes to win. And it's not comfortable. Like you made your suggestion earlier, and I was thinking to myself, like, man, the list of no's, my gosh. Like, and I even had this thing a few years back where I had 1 year ever in my entire sales career that I did not hit my number, one. And I could tell you the reasons why I felt like it was unfair, but that's neither here nor there. the manager that I had that year, they wrote this appraisal on me that we had 4 appraisals during the year. There was 3 quarterly, and then there was an end of year. My 3 quarterly were good. And then my end of year one, I mean, it was clear they wanted to just claim that I was the worst thing on the earth. I kept that appraisal and I reread it because it was like it formed this chip on my shoulder and lit a fire in me. I came back and I bounced back and I studied every single thing that had worked the prior year, but I also studied all the things that didn't work the prior year, and I tweaked or jettisoned every one of them. Like what was taking up all my time that wasn't worth it, that didn't pan out. Everybody wants a piece of your schedule, right? Who's worth it and who's not. And you've got to develop that discipline around your schedule. But like almost how can we capitalize as we're working as individual contributors or even just as coaches of these sellers to capitalize on these discomforts and these rejections and these, not hitting their maximum, their optimum? How can we capitalize on that moment and build these folks up so that they'll embrace the discomfort enough to up level?
It's a good question. And I think the best coaches that I am connected to will tell you that they teach people specific skills that are going to make them more comfortable. I'll give you a couple that are common. I often talk about the difference between time management and task management. Most sellers, especially new sellers, bucket these 2 things together, but they're actually 2 very different skills. On one end of the spectrum, there's task management, being able to start something and then finish it and then report back or complete the task systematically. Okay, that's one skill. The other skill, time management, is about allocating enough time every day to get those things done, which means I have to go to my task list first, look at the tasks, assess how much time they are, and then bake that time into my calendar. The other thing you mentioned there is people want some of your time. I would ask everybody that's listening to this to drop in the comments, what percentage of time do you spend every day is actual selling time? I'm only curious about this because I know what my calendar looks like. And man, I'm organized. Like it's color coded and it will give you a seizure because there are so much packed into a day. But I get it done. And everyone on my team will tell you, I don't know how he does it all. I don't know how he gets 8 tasks done before 9 a.m. I don't know how he prospects for an hour and a half every day, still finds time to cold call, answers every email in less than like 10 minutes. And it's because my ADHD and my multiple screens are quite complementary to one another. I've learned to harness that power. And I'll tell anybody in the room that is ADHD right now, it's not a crutch. It's not a hindrance. It's a superpower. And if you lean into it, you're going to find that not only are you capable of getting more done, but you are the most high utility employee at that company because of that particular disorder. Lean into it and win with it instead of leaning on it when you fail and saying it's because I can't focus. Yes, you can. You can only focus on one thing at a time, though. So just do the one thing at a time and block off the time to get it all done. I promise if you do this and master those 2 skills, time management and task management, you're going to find them working together quite nicely and your life will become easier and you will not be spending every day at work until 8 o'clock at night. You'll be able to disconnect at a decent enough time and you'll come in fresh the next day because you're better at time management.
Bravo.
Hey, can you repeat that difference again between task and time management?
One of them has to do with the systems that are in place. For example, I use Asana. It's my lifeblood. That is where all of my event team attacks me when it comes to task assignments. So every morning when I start my day, that's the first place I look. How many tasks do I have? If I look on a Monday, I can look at the entire week in Asana and I can say it's going to take me an hour and a half to do this task, 30 minutes to do this task, 15 minutes to do this task. And I go through the week and I block off all the time. And now, anytime something new comes my way, that time is already spoken for. And
so you put time on your calendar that aligns to the task that's in Asana.
Absolutely.
You schedule it in there. Yeah. Okay. Totally get it.
That time block literally says Asana on it. Here, I can actually, watch out, live stuff right here. There it is. You can see it. Asana, right there, Asana right there, Asana right there, Asana right there.
Incredible.
Right? When you look at that calendar, and you can go back, pick a week. They all, well, I was in Austin here. You can kind of look at it, right? If it's not on my calendar, it doesn't exist in my life. Here's where I was traveling. Right? This is all real-time stuff. And that right there spares me so much hassle and turmoil and stress. And let's be frank, dealing with your pipeline every day has enough stress in it. I don't also need tasks piling up and people hitting me in Slack and DMs every day going, have you finished this? And I really need this to be able to get this done. That is only going to frustrate me more. Manage yourself, or all of the tasks that you are responsible for are going to manage you for you. And that you will not like.
So on that calendar that you were just going through, do you actually, and this actually does tie back, I think, to the topic of the show of what we're talking about today. Does that have on there time for cold calling, or time for outbound prospecting, or time for following up on emails, right? Because, it's real easy to fill up our calendar with meetings or even tasks that we have there. Then there's other things we have to accomplish.
Some of those are in red, and I usually put them in red. I'll often sacrifice a lunch hour and eat at my desk and then hit the phones because I'm calling the West Coast. They're 3 hours behind me, no sweat, right? I can definitely do it. Some of that will move to the following day, and I'll roll over those tasks to the next because I didn't allocate enough time for it. If you don't build flexibility into your calendar, I promise you it'll eat you alive, and you're going to be so rigid with it, you'll never accomplish things on time. There's a balance. There's a comfortable happy that has to be found in the way that you manage your tasks, your time, your responsibilities, and your pipeline. And all of those things are coming at us every single day. Being in sales in the modern age is not about cold calling, closing deals, and scheduling meetings anymore. It's about being the most high utility rep that you can be to provide value, not just for your prospects and your buyers, but for your company as well. What's the next move for us? If you're that rep, not only are you never going to get on the chopping block, but you're also going to be looked at as somebody that leads the pack, somebody that is actually invested in how we can win. And isn't that our mission to get to the next stage of our professional development? I've often said you cannot grow professionally unless you're willing to grow personally. So if you're sitting here waiting for that promotion, what are you doing personally to earn it?
It's a work-life rhythm for sure. And it's, what's fascinating to me is that I've had times where, and I've learned a lot of this the hard way, but I've had times where I was just working myself to the bone, back to back to back, and I was far less effective than when I had lots of space on my calendar to do tasks and to make room, and where I had pinned chats where, the direct people in my sphere, yeah, they can get a hold of me immediately, but the rest of the stuff, it doesn't require or demand immediate attention or response. And I'm probably working less hard, but so much more effective because it gives me the time to take a balcony view of what is the big rock? What are the biggest priorities? What's my daily hit list? I'm in my third quarter right now. So it's the time of year where I've spent all of H1 driving as much pipeline as humanly possible. Now it's execution mode. I don't need to go out and get a lot of net new. I've got to bring this stuff to closure. I've got to look at that list every day. I've got my daily list of non-negotiables that I come up with in the gym, and I get to that list before I touch anything else. And so making sure that you're, taking these big swings and doing the most impactful stuff. My inbox is a little bit more out of control than I would like, but I'm getting stuff done. And I think that's where we have to challenge the comfort level sometimes of sellers who want to be great, because it isn't, you can reach a level of comfort by knowing that you're prioritizing the right things as opposed to feeling compelled to get to everything. I had a mentor that told me years ago, they were like, look, Carson, people are going to reach out to you all the time. And you're going to find that even though somebody's reaching out, if it's like a vendor or a partner or a customer with a simple question that they could probably get elsewhere just by, looking it up online. If you don't get to them right away, a lot of times, if you circle back by the end of the day, they found the answer somewhere else anyway. And I found that to be true 99% of the time. It's like, you've got to take care of you because nobody is going to swoop in and force you to take care of yourself, to be your best version of yourself every day, and to prioritize appropriately. They're just not going to do it. You have to learn how to do it.
We are all responsible for our level of success. No one is going to be responsible for that for you. And I tell SDRs that they should become an account executive so they can learn the other side of the quarter. They should become a customer success rep so that they can understand what a bad close looks like. Not countless customer success reps have kicked back deals that are bad fits, and closers have closed them because they can, not because the buyer actually needs what they have, right? And so I tell them, like, see the big picture. That's how people become vice presidents of sales. If you think they become that by constantly moving jobs and going for that shiny quarter at every next role, you're wrong, because that's how they stay an SDR. They become a VP of sales by staying at the same company for a long time and learning it inside and out, like the back of their hand, and helping others win. A second note, you mentioned that when people come into this, I don't think, and I think you're right, we get the job because we need a job. But then we realize the opportunity here is bigger than that. It's a growth opportunity in my life. I spent 15 years in the kitchen. It's 114 degrees in those kitchens. Chili's, Cracker Barrel, Applebee's, you name it, I probably cooked in it. Thousands of plates every night. And when I came into an office and sat down and put my phone in an air-conditioned building and like ping pong tables and bean bags in the SaaS space, I was like, I can't believe this is happening. Like, this is amazing. And it was more money than I ever made, but it wasn't long before I wasn't doing it for the money anymore. I was doing it for the lifestyle I wanted, the future I wanted for my family, right? That's the thing that hits you. And I don't think that every seller coming in as an SDR sees their opportunity. I think they sports medicine degrees, I see that a lot. They don't know what to do with that degree they just got. So they fall backwards into sales. I've never met a seller that I was like, what'd you want to be when you grew up? And they were like, oh, I've always wanted to be in sales.
Hey, but then John Barrows wrote that amazing book that I read to my kids sometimes about wanting to grow up and be in sales.
You mean that book right there?
I read it to my, I kid you not, my 7-year-old has actually requested that book multiple times. I love it.
You know, it's a great book, though, and I think it touches something really specific. It touches a few things. Charlotte went out and sold all those cookies, and it was a good volume game for her. But also, she had somebody that she learned was allergic to nuts. So she went back and custom made cookies without nuts so that they could buy what they needed. Man, it's such a simple concept.
Yeah.
But we take it for granted as tech sellers. I want to sell everybody 10 things because that's what our product does. But really, they only want to buy the one. Let the customer success person do the rest and sell the whole product. You just sell the problem that they have, the solution to the problem that they have, right? But John did a great job with this, and my hat's off to Charlotte. She's such a great kid.
It's an amazing book, and you hit on something there, James, that I think is really important as well. I see a lot of people play leapfrog. You know, they think the grass is greener on another side, especially in the tech sales game. I mean, people bounce around all the time, and they do it thinking that they'll get a higher level, more pay. And you know what? You might in some cases. I've absolutely had people come in over the last 11 years that I've been at Microsoft and have made big overtures to me, offered me a lot more money to go elsewhere. But you know why I stay? For number one, it's the relationships. But number two, it is because over time, you develop this intimate knowledge of the language or the dialect in this case. Like, I could go sell cloud anywhere, but what's amazing, and again, people can buy these services and solutions from any organization, from any seller, but the difference is I have become a value to my customers that is unique because I've been here so long that I have the relationships or the knowledge or the resources that I can bring into any scenario. And I can also tell these customers, if you arm me with what I need, I can go back and I know exactly who to go to. The inside selling, the internal selling is sometimes the most important sale because I know who to go to make them care deeply about what that customer has going on and what's possible for us to do together, or to unlock resources or to unlock investment dollars or funding or whatever it is, discounts. I know how to get what I need to get to make this deal magical for everybody who touches it. And that is unique value. I couldn't go to a competitor tomorrow and immediately know how to do that, but the benefit of staying in one place is that you can develop that tribal knowledge that makes you indispensable to an organization, and you said something else that I think is super, super important that we don't do enough as sellers or as leaders. And it's looking around. What are the problems that other people are facing or that we're facing? How do we solve them? And then find ways to replicate that. I've spent so much time over the last decade solving problems that my leadership states or my customer state, but then finding the right way to train others on how to do the same thing. It's game changing, but it's also led me to being promoted 6 times. Like these are things that can be transformative for your career. And don't get me wrong, I've had situations too where I stalled or I was in the same level for multiple years, and other people, it could have been very easy to just go somewhere else. But if you stay the course and you keep investing in yourself and mastering your craft, sharpening your axe and getting better like you and your community are doing every day, man, the possibilities are endless. Sales has been so good to me, and I do it all for love of the game.
I never thought that this job would take me this far. If you'd have told me in 2014 when I started as a cold caller SDR at a small tech firm in Knoxville, Tennessee, I'll say it again, it was a small software tech firm in Knoxville, Tennessee, the weirdest thing you'll ever hear. You know, when I think about software, I think about Knoxville. When I start, if you'd have told me then that I would host the longest running daily sales show in the world, I would have said you were full of it, and that would never happen in a million years. But people don't realize that sales is just the vehicle. The destination is up to you. You can basically do anything you want if you know how to sell. That's a 100% employable role. Whether you're starting your own thing or coming in hot at another firm, you can figure it out and you can sell it. That's employable. That you will always have a job if you are able to sell. And isn't that special? Isn't that a great sense of security? Just like you'll always have a job if you can cook. Restaurants always need cooks. People are going to come in and eat.
So, hey, as we wrap up, and I know your calendar, I'm a little nervous, like to go over at all.
Oh, I built in the flexibility. You're totally fine, Tom.
Okay. But as we wrap up here, James, if you were to kind of pick 2 or 3 things that you've learned, taken away from the last 2 to 3 years of having this daily show that you would have never kind of thought of before and would want to share with somebody, what have you learned or what have been the key takeaways?
I'm gonna try to think of some good ones that are impactful. The first one that comes to mind that was a tough one for me to swallow was own your status. I am not a top performing seller. I've never been to President's Club. I don't get, Mercedes-Benz handed to me for winning the revenue race this year. But I'm a passionate person when it comes to helping others. And that's served me well as a seller and now as a media person, a host, if you will. So own your role and your status and don't be afraid of it. It's okay. You can improve. You can change it, right? You don't have to be the top performer every quarter to be valuable at your company. You don't need to feel that pressure. The second thing I've noticed is all of the best sellers that we've had on the show, they test new stuff constantly. They're addicted to stepping outside of what they've been doing for the last 3 days and trying this instead. Because what they want to see is what's going to be the thing that hits hard today. Because tomorrow, all the other sellers in the world are probably going to be doing it and it's not going to work. But if they can be the first to hit on something or find something that's circling back, we've all heard cold calling is dead and cold email is dead. Nothing dies, right? It all comes back around as the channel of preference. It's just a matter of time. So don't be afraid to step out of the norm, try something different, but be on the lookout for that thing that's coming back around into fashion, because you've got to be able to leverage those trends as they come in and out as like the tide, right? And you never know when something is going to come back into effect. Right now, the phone is really hot because I don't blame a single leader for not answering emails. They are inundated with shit emails from AI solutions that aren't even, there's no effort being made in some of these emails. So I don't blame leaders for that. No wonder the phone is so hot right now. I also think the third thing that I'll give you, the third big takeaway is face your fear. Whatever the fear is, if it's you being on screen, if it's you being, listening to your phone calls, if it's you being criticized for emails that you're writing by your one-on-one, your managers, face that fear, because being able to take that critique and change your behavior and see different results is going to be key for your success as a professional. I don't give a shit what you do for a living. That is true 100% of the time.
Wow. Well said. I think those are great takeaways. Those
Thank
are
you.
really kind of put the bow on the show. Carson, any final questions before we wrap up here?
James, you've done a lot of shows. I'm curious, best questions you've ever been asked or asked that you're
that's a good one,
particularly
too.
proud of?
It's hard to say. I ask a lot of questions on shows that are tactical related.
Sure.
So the best ones for me are the personal ones, the ones that I get to say things like, how'd you get here? Tell me the story of how you became who you are today. Or what were you doing before you were a VP of sales at a multi-billion-dollar SaaS industry company, right? Like those types of questions set the seeds. I can't tell you how many A+ sellers, like top performing sellers, will tell me, oh, I was a bartender, or I was a restaurant person, I was a server. Right? Those people make great sellers because they have no fear of talking to strangers. They were bred into it really early. So those are my favorite questions to ask. The best question that I've been asked came to me actually just the other day when somebody said, James, what do you think is changing about the trends in email? And I say that was the best question. It might sound simple, but when I'm interviewing a guest, I never get asked questions. So the fact that I even got a question from this guest was like, wow, what a professional. Like even in an interview format, she turned around and asked me a question.
I love it.
That's how good she is at asking questions when she's on calls.
That's practical application right there. I love that. But my favorite question I ever got asked was to create a sales playlist. Like, if you're going out on the ultimate sales road trip, road warrior, what's your playlist? And I had to do some thinking around that one. That was fun.
I own, on my phone alone, I have 80 gigs of music. 80 gigs.
Amazing.
And I don't think that there is a style or genre of music that doesn't hit my ears. If I couldn't have music in my life, just take me out, man. I'm done.
I'm there with you.
So, hey, James, if people want to learn more about your show, where should they go, connect with you? What's the best place to learn more?
So obviously connect with me. I've never met a stranger in my life. I would caution you, though, I'm quickly approaching 30,000 connections, that very arbitrary number that LinkedIn allows you to have.
No,
so follow me. So follow me on Instagram at saywhatsales, all one word. James Buckley. I'm very easy. I have a sweater on from Will that says, I hope this email finds you well. That's my sweater on my Instagram profile. So you'll see it. But then also check it out, sellbetter.xyz. That's where you're going to get all, we have like free
sellbetter.xyz, not .com.xyz. Okay.
.xyz. Everybody says .com. We say .xyz. People still go to .com. It's fine. Okay. But .xyz, sellbetter.xyz, free resources, templates, guides, videos, all of our replays are there. And obviously, if you want to have a conversation with me about sponsoring a show, let me know. We'll have that conversation. I look forward to it.
Awesome. Awesome stuff. Well, thank you, James. You definitely, you outdid yourself with your shyness that we saw beforehand. So thank you. And thanks for all the great comments. And Carson, do you know our guest next week?
Anthony Iannarino.
That's right.
Yo!
All right. That's right.
One of the four horsemen.
That's right.
That's right.
So another great show on tap for next week. Carson, you want to wrap us up?
Yeah, this was awesome. James, thank you, man. Good to see you again. And man, you really brought the goods. I loved the quotables and the practical advice and the authenticity, man. You're the real deal. Thanks for everybody for being on. And until next time.